Okay, so here we are at Cambo. I'm Shelley and I'm one of the gardeners here. It's a pretty cold and windy day, so a nice day to take you through the glass houses and have a look inside there. But first of all, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the history of glass houses at Cambo. In Europe, glass houses started to be used in about the 1600s, and mostly that was to protect fruit like oranges, so they would have been orangeries. And then as glass houses progressed, they started to be used to extend the growing season. Here at Cambo, there were originally 5 glass houses all along this wall, and they were coal-fired to keep them warm. They would have grown peaches and nectarines and vines. And at the time in the Victorian period, it was a real sign of wealth if you had a glass house, because there were taxes on glass, panes of glass. They were very expensive. So if you had a glass house, it was a real sign that you were up and coming in the world of the Victorians. So the records here at Cambo show that in 1808, about 1,000 panes of glass needed to be taken out and repaired because of damage by hailstones. So they were very expensive to run, as well as firing to keep them warm. This glass house that you see now was erected in 2016, and it was due to a lottery fund from the Heritage Lottery, and it's made by Alatex. That's the company who put this glass house together. So it's based on the original features which would have been found in the glass house that was here in the 1800s. Okay, so let's go inside. In the glass house at Cambo. During the day, this display house is kept at 16 degrees C, and at night the temperature in all the glass houses doesn't drop below 5 degrees. So we can keep tender plants in here and they won't die off with the cold, which is great. So obviously you can keep things growing all year round. So there are sensors in the glass house, and they detect when the temperature reaches that 16 degrees C. And in order to keep it at that level, the vents will open in increments, and they are detected by sensors, and the panelling is behind the walls here, and it keeps the consistent temperature of 16 degrees. So sometimes you'll hear the sort of like opening and closing of the vents in here as they regulate the temperature. So we've got a lovely collection of plants in here which have all just been repotted. Over here we've got the lithiops, which are also called living stones, and these are native to South Africa, and they love growing in a desert climate. As you can see, they're very succulent. They hold water in their fleshy leaves, so they can survive for a long time. So yeah, nicknamed living stones, and if you see collections of these all next to each other, and you can dress them up and make them look really interesting. So here we've got a lovely selection of pelargoniums, which as well have just been repotted. So I've cut them right back, and we take cuttings from these as well. The pelargoniums often get confused with geraniums. Geraniums are the ones that you can grow outside the perennial geraniums, but these pelargoniums, again, are native to South Africa and also Southeast Australia, and these ones are tender, so they wouldn't survive below 5 degrees if you left them outside. What's lovely about them is they have a really fantastic range of leaves, different shaped leaves and different colours, and some are quite hairy. And also they're really beautifully scented as well, which is what they're about in this bit of the glass house. It's all about touch me, smell me. Really nice collection, really lovely textures. Different shaped leaves. These ones are much softer, much silkier. These ones are quite hairy. And then you get the more cultivated types, so the bicolour ones. You get a whole range of these pelargoniums, so that you can build up a really nice collection within a glasshouse setting. So because of their lovely scent, the Victorians would have a range of pelargoniums on stands by their front door, so that when people came to visit them, they would brush past the leaves and produce this really lovely scent as people were entering and leaving the house. Over here we've got a really nice collection of Aeoniums, which we're hoping to build up as well. So these are fantastic architecturally. They originate from the Canary Islands and from Madeira. And you can just have, just like a few, and you see the differences in the patterns and the... So these have recently been repotted, and they're in a sort of 25% grit mixture because they really like good drainage where they grow in their native climate. They don't like to be wet, and they definitely don't like to be wet around the stem. So if you grow them at home and have them on your windowsill, they're very easy to keep. Like the house leeks, Sempervivums, they don't like to have their necks wet, so a nice top dressing of gravel works really well for these plants. So we're also building up a really nice collection of Sempervivums, which are really easy to keep. Sempervivum means always alive, so you get the gist from that you shouldn't really be able to kill off a Sempervivum. They grow in kind of rocky, alpine, quite dry conditions. Again, they have these succulent leaves, so they're used to surviving really extreme temperatures and drought. They're very easy to propagate. You can just, a lot of them will sort of throw off these little side shoots that you can just break off and just pop into soil. They often they'll be in a rosette, and then they'll multiply around the rosette. So here you could easily split these two, and then you've got two separate plants. Again, like the Aeoniums, they're like a good top dressing of grit. Because they don't like to have them, they don't like to be sitting in wet. As I say, they're from kind of dry alpine conditions, so they like nice free draining compost with lots of grit or sand in there. So in the original glass houses that were here at Cambo in the 1800s, this was the peach and nectarine house, but they would have been grown in a much more traditional way from the centre here and grown up towards the windows at an angle. And that way the fruit receives the maximum light. Here we're growing them against a wall, and we have a nectarine, and we've also got a peach just along the way, and they do fruit, and we've eaten the peaches last year, and they do taste really delicious. So this was the prop house originally when the glass houses were here, again in the 1800s. At the moment it's more like a sort of holding space for plants after they've been propped, and we're just growing them on before we put them in the cold frames outdoors. So this was the vine house at Cambo, and we do have a vine growing here which produces lots of grapes every year. Did very well last year, and then this is where we do most of our propagation. So after seeds have been sown in the prop room, we bring them out here, and we've got a heat bench over here. So this is set to about 15 degrees at the moment. So this gives a really nice bottom heat just to start a lot of the seeds off. We've also got the seeds that need between sort of 15 and 20 degrees. They're in closed propagators, which we do mist and take out and water from underneath. So the things that have been grown in here is mostly for the cut flower garden and the edible garden. Some of the cut flower garden is grown from annuals, and of course a lot of the edibles is grown from annuals. So this is always very busy in May. This is where it's all happening here at Cambo.